So I was traveling again a couple of weeks ago, and I remain amazed at how people just don't know how to get on an airplane. I mean, now look, some people don't travel often, so they may not be that familiar, and it doesn't help that every airline seems to have a different system or a naming convention for its boarding zones. But people who know they aren't going to board early, nonetheless, crowd around the boarding line like a bunch of gumballs in a machine. I can't get through them. I don't know how to tell them there's nothing on the plane worth rushing for. Just wait your turn. Be patient. We'll all get to Dallas on time, or eventually, maybe. In any case, come fly with us on the Back Nine.
This is the Back Nine with Dennis Williams and Josh Mora.
Dennis, my friend, so good to see you. Here we are.
Yeah, you want to go through those travel woes. We could probably do a whole show on it. Like boarding, deboarding a plane.
Yes, nobody knows
morons
how to
who try and step in front of you when they're behind you. And I literally will shut somebody down when they try to walk up in between the aisles.
Oh, yeah, like you're in row 12, they're in 14, and they're flying. If they're rushing to a connection,
it's the only time it's okay.
Different. But there's a process to this.
Right.
One row at a
time. I will literally
time.
stare someone down if they try to step in front of me, and they're 2 rows back. I'm like, you're not going anywhere.
I don't look at them. I just throw an elbow.
Right. Here's the one thing I'll tell you. So in the Caribbean, they have it figured out. There's a back door on an airplane.
Yeah.
So explain to me this. How come the technology has not been created to create a door that goes and lets people in that door and then lets people in the other door? How come those arms that come out from the gangways?
Yes.
How come they don't have 2 entrances? How come that has never happened? Explain that to me.
I have seen them overseas. I've seen them in Europe.
Of course you've seen them overseas because they should be in every airport in America. It would speed up the boarding process, obviously, by double, right?
Yeah.
It'd be twice as fast. And if you get off a plane in the Caribbean, get down the stairs, both of them are open, and you're out.
We can walk right on the tarmac because the weather's nice there.
Right. But my point is, it's not nice here. Have a big friggin' gangway that goes in both doors.
Dennis, it's just another case of the man trying to keep the people down. That's what I say.
I don't get it.
So, Dennis, our guest this week as we kick off season 5, by the way,
awesome.
Season 5. We can't have a better guest for this episode than this guest because he's so much in our milieu, right? Former sportscaster, number 1. Divorced like we are with adult kids, number 2. On his, depending on how you want to count it, 3rd or 4th career, or maybe the 3rd and the 4th career simultaneously. And so our guest is Kraig Kann, who was with the Golf Channel for a long time, and 2 careers later has started the Kann Advisory Group and has relaunched his podcast fairly recently, which is called Tracks to Success, and of which I'm a huge fan. And in many ways, Kraig, your success with that was the inspiration to me to say, boy, this is something that I think connects with people, this kind of communication. So take us through your evolution from career 1 into careers 2, 3, and 4, and describe what you get out of your careers, the 2 that are going on right now, Kann Advisory Group and Tracks to Success, now that is bringing you professional fulfillment.
First off, congratulations to you all on 5 seasons. That's pretty awesome. So the fact that I get to be a part of it is a thrill for me. I consider both of you guys friends. To be on this is a great opportunity and not something I take lightly. So this is a blast. I'm going to actually start with the end and work my way backwards. And so I'll answer the Tracks to Success podcast. Inspiring people, inspiring stories. I've always enjoyed telling stories. I've enjoyed being able to share my own with people through keynotes and workshops, but help other people learn to tell their own story. And I've always enjoyed the art, and I do believe it's an art, of interviewing other people, putting them in the spotlight and helping bring the best out of them, whether it was in my TV career at Golf Channel or when I was with the LPGA as Chief Communications Officer, sitting on a stage in a press conference at a major championship, or at the Olympic Games in 2016, where I had the great, unbelievable honor of hosting the press conferences for the ladies and helping sharing their story and their brands to the world. So I have the podcast, and I started the podcast as an extension of my career, an opportunity to do something that I love and I've always had a passion for since I was a young kid. And I like promoting other people. And I find it fascinating to be curious about others and learn about them and what they've done to reach their highest peak, if you will, in their career through the pitfalls and the successes, because I think that's really important. We learn from both. So everything that I've done, though, I have to say is tied together. I try not to do anything that doesn't have a link to something else. I wrote a book called Can You Get Our Attention, which I then translate into my workshops that I do for corporations and help them learn to have a message worth paying attention to, and then tie that into the podcast. And so everything to me is linked to the Business Can Advisory Group. So that's the end, if you will. The beginning was you saying that I've had 13 or 14 careers.
That's about right?
I actually don't know that I've had that, but what I will say is that there's great value in the ability to pivot. And I don't believe that we are prepared in life to handle pivots. Nobody trains us on this. Nobody helps us through it except our closest inner circle. And it's a challenge. And so whether it be a career in broadcasting, which you both know that I had, and then segueing into this great opportunity to be a chief communications officer for the LPGA at an executive level in a sports league was a great opportunity. There's no way I'm doing workshops, keynotes, or otherwise if I didn't have the LPGA job. So everything ties together, and I try to keep that synergy.
I love that, Kraig. And you and I have similar backgrounds in the sense that we weaved our careers together. I was a sportscaster, then I worked in media sales at a network affiliates across the country, and then started my own business, which is storytelling for brands and getting that in front of the right people. So each time there was a connection, but there was a redefinition, right? You have to reinvent yourself a little bit each time. So talk about that. Like even though they're connected, it's a challenge to reinvent yourself each time you make these pivots, as you called it.
Yeah, I think sometimes you're forced into it. Sometimes you are somebody who starts to think about the future and how can I get there? I think the important thing is to have a skill set, have a toolbox filled with skill sets or potentially superpowers, if you will, and have that ready to go before you have a 911 call on your career. I think that's the important thing. I go back to 2009, sitting in the studio at Golf Channel during a rain delay of the John Deere Classic. That's a true story. And I said, what am I going to do? Where is this all going to go? And I started to ask myself, am I just making another show, or am I truly making a difference? Or am I on my way to making a difference where years down the road, if TV goes away, will I be known or be able to be known for something other than being, quote unquote, the Golf Channel guy? And so I started this blog, and the blog was about all the topics that were attached to me that I felt like I had expertise in, be it media coaching, presentation skills, branding, all of those types of things. And so I wrote all those blog posts, and I ultimately wrote 150 of them. And to tell you the truth, this kind of goes back to synergy. As I was writing them, what I thought about was, guess what? If I write these blogs, someday, if I want to write a book, I will have already done the hard labor. I will have already done the work for it. I just need to repurpose some of that because the book will have written itself. And ultimately, when Can You Get Our Attention came out, I had done it that way. I weaved my story into all of those other topics that I had. So here's the thing, Dennis, Josh, I think pivots, then I go back to this, are something that nobody prepares us for. What's interesting is our kids go to college. Some of them don't know their majors. We fly across the country, but we have to connect, right? We get detoured and we have pivots from one airport to another. These things happen to us all the time. Marriage, sometimes there's a pivot in our personal life. And so we have to be ready for those types of things. And so I go back to that 911 call and not wanting to be known for something or being stuck in a situation where I didn't have something else that I could do to have a second act, if you will. The difference is I chose to move toward that act. I wasn't kicked really hard as some people are to the curb.
The book, by the way, is called Can You Get Our Attention? And it was an Amazon bestseller. So it is a fantastic book. It's a great read. When you were in that situation, Kraig, when you first started thinking about the blog, what was going through you emotionally? I mean, was it a sense of beyond just kind of thinking about it practically? Was there some sense of existentialism that you were feeling? Was there just some wondering, who am I at this stage, having worked in this one job for as long as I have, beyond the actual practical manifestations of it?
I was the kid 7 or 8 years old that grew up in suburban Chicago, knowing exactly what I wanted to do. All I ever wanted to be was a sportscaster. That's it, period. I broadcast games that I made up in my room, Blackhawks, Bears, White Sox, all my teams, and ended up traveling that path. Played 3 sports in high school, quit the basketball team my senior year because I wasn't going to play, and I had the opportunity to do play-by-play. And then I went to the University of Missouri to be a broadcast journalism major, and then I went on my road of local TV, and fortune hit me, and I had the opportunity to be at Golf Channel. That was a great, great opportunity. I'm so blessed. I could tell stories for the next 2 hours about the impact of Arnold Palmer and flying in a plane with him and going to the White House twice and all the different things that have happened in my career. But in 2008 and 2009, you remember what the market was like. And it also was the exact time that 2 things happened. Number one, Golf Channel was about to be merged in with the Comcast, NBC, that whole thing, family. And so there was a lot of unrest, a lot of confusion, if you will, about that. Some people were let go. And it hit me hard because these were my friends. And I started realizing you might not be able to go out on your own terms. So I started preparing at that exact moment for what might happen to me later. There's a little bit more to the story, which includes contracts and when contracts come up and going from a full-time employee to a contracted employee, even though you're still, quote unquote, the main anchor. But that hit me hard. And I started thinking, all right, what can I do to prepare for what might happen to me? It changed me. The whole attitude I had about the business was changed. I didn't know if I was going to be able to get where I ultimately thought I could go because I might not have control of everything like that. We lose the ability to control our destiny at some point in a corporate space. And so that's how I kind of went where I went. I just had the great fortune of having Mike Wan as commissioner of the LPGA come to me with this wonderful opportunity that I didn't see coming and saw a way to a potential new career or something that I thought was equally special that might carry me somewhere. And obviously 5 years as chief communications officer. And truth be told, if it was managing director of communications or communications manager, I might not have the same exact enthusiasm for the opportunity. If it was the PGA Tour, maybe not the same enthusiasm, but the LPGA needed a lift. I liked that. That intrigued me to be able to help other people build their brands and provide something I believe was a new, unique voice. I could tell them about what the message might be able to be, but also what the media might say about all the messages that we might create, and then help the players build their brands. That was really cool for me. So that's kind of how it all happened. And then the rest is just, I don't know, me kind of getting an itch to really take everything I learned and put it in the marketplace.
I think what's interesting about what you said, one of the most interesting things, Kraig, is following your gut. You saw sort of writing on the wall and didn't want it to be on someone else's terms. I think we all go through that, and to have the kind of inclination to say to yourself, okay, I'm going to follow my gut and see where this is going. I think that's an important lesson, not just in your situation, but anybody who's listening, to know that if you think something's probably going to happen career-wise or job-wise in that corporate job, you're probably right. It probably is going to go in that direction. And rather than waiting for that shoe to drop, which I kind of did, I kind of felt it and I waited for the shoe to drop. And then I had young kids at home and contract wasn't renewed and like, holy, what am I going to do? I think you can be a real good lesson for everybody to be prepared for that moment, because corporate is tough, man. They will cut your balls off for nothing, right? Like, and I saw that happen. It's why I run my own business now too, because I saw it particularly at the sales side of the business, where you could be this superstar one quarter and then you have a bad quarter and a GM forces you out after being the one that did all of the sales presentations and everything else. You are out the door. I said to myself, in the same way I'd learned my lesson the first time, and the second time I said, I'm not going to let that happen to me again. I am going to pivot and be prepared on the other side of this. So I think that's a really good lesson. Would you agree?
I would agree. I think you have to have the ability to think about all the steps that you've made in your career. I actually coach this with people in executive coaching. Take every job that you've had, and have you ever journaled and thought about what was your greatest success there? What was the greatest disappointment there? Who influenced you there? Who did you influence there? What was your legacy if you left behind something? What would that be? And what could you carry to the next step? And most people don't know their story anyway. They really don't. In my workshops, I ask that question right out of the gate. I'll bring somebody up and say, all right, here's your audience. There might be 25 people in the room, or a keynote speech I do, there might be 400 people in the room. And I'll say, here's your audience. I want you to tell people who you are and why they should pay attention. Why should they care about you? Most people do not have the answer to that. Now, I believe that I might be a little unique in that, and that I've always known who I thought I was and what gift I might have, if you will, a superpower of being able to present, and not just present for Golf Channel, present golf, but present the best of myself. And some of that I learned from Arnold Palmer, believe it or not. And I am grateful for learning how to, what I believe is, treat people the right way and make them feel like a very important person in the room, all of those types of things. So I think you learn things. The truth of it is that after 3 of my 5 years at LPGA, I loved every bit of that job, every single bit of that job. I loved working with female athletes. I have 2 girls. I loved female empowerment. I love building their brands. I know how talented they are. After 3 years, if I was being honest with myself, I was wondering where I was going to go in that as well. And I started thinking about all the things that I was asked to do there. And I started thinking about, could I take this somewhere ultimately? The tail end of my LPGA tenure, we had great success. We were nominated for Sports League of the Year for the first time ever, Final 5. That was just a thrill ride to be a part of a dynamic leadership team. But it wasn't the happiest ending. There was a lot of sadness there, because I hoped it could go somewhere really special, but I just didn't know that ultimately it was going to go there. And yet I had this big itch about 1.5 years before my 5 years there about, could I actually do this on my own? Could I take everything I've done and help companies, organizations, athletic teams, and people become a better version of themselves in learning how to present themselves and their brand? So I don't know, maybe it's just I'm this light bulb guy, and there's always a light bulb going off, or a bright idea guy. And then I just try to act on it and do the best I can.
We'll be right back.
Friends, over the last few seasons, we've introduced you to our friend Pete, or more to the point, our friends at Pete. Pete is the present and future of corporate training. It's a proprietary platform that allows mid-sized companies to build relevant, contemporary training programs quickly, efficiently, and inexpensively. With Pete's AI-powered platform, you'll get customized, interactive, threaded curriculum built in a fraction of the time at a fraction of the cost. Whether it's compliance, leadership, sales strategies, technical skills, employee onboarding, or anything your company needs for its ongoing training and culture demands, Pete designs and delivers exactly what you are looking for: fast, efficient, and effective. With Pete, you can focus on what matters most: developing your employees and growing your business. Pete, corporate training reimagined. Visit Pete.com, that's PETE.com, to learn more and get started today.
All right, back to the show. So, Kraig, when you had that epiphany at the LPGA and you started to make inroads towards starting your own business and your own thing, which is now the Kann Advisory Group, what were the steps that you took, and how do you articulate the values that you're trying to get across to your audiences, helping them tell their own stories? How does that manifest itself in your workshops?
The biggest gift I received in my career was not the opportunity to go to the Golf Channel. Let's face it. I mean, if we're being honest, I'm not here on your podcast or anybody else's if I don't spend 17 and a half years at Golf Channel as one of the original cast members, if you will. That was just amazing. The LPGA gave me a chance to have what I call the biggest stretch assignment that I could have ever been given, because I didn't know if I could do it. I didn't know if I could be a chief communications officer. I didn't know if I could lead a team. I didn't know what my strengths were. I feel like I'm pretty good at knowing my weaknesses, but I didn't know where all of that would tie in and fit. And I feel like I did a pretty darn good job of being a passion promoter of women's sports and the LPGA and all of the athletes and those members in the organization. What was really cool about it was the way they did the bonus structure. And I'm not all about money. Trust me, I'm not about money. I believe in making a difference, not a paycheck. If you do the difference, the paychecks come. But Mike Wan's big thing was, I want you to develop some things that you can implement into our organization based on what you believe your skill set is. I'll judge you on it, and your bonus will be based on that. Okay, that's awesome, right? So that put me to work on creating programs, executive presentation skills, media coaching seminars, like all these different things that I was able to do. And anybody at the LPGA during my tenure would know, yep, I went through that. And I started thinking, okay, I can carry this somewhere. So I didn't tell people this, but in my mind, I was building towards something else if I needed it and if I wanted it. And so I was able to take those things. So I tell people this, when you're in a job, it's not that you should be looking for the next job. Don't think that way. But you do need to be thinking about your career and what you are doing currently that can help you later. Like you better be able to leave a job, a position, being able to say, I tangibly did this. This is what my fingerprint was, and then be able to potentially implement it somewhere else if you needed to. That's what I would tell people.
Hey, Kraig, you never know where an interview is going to go. And I want to unpack one thing that you said. You had a good relationship with Arnold Palmer, and I never made the connection. That's like one of my idols. I don't know if you know this, but Three Bridges Consulting, my company, is named after the Three Bridges of Latrobe, which is the course he grew up in. So the whole thing, like, I'm a huge Arnold Palmer fan, but that's beside the point. The point I wanted to ask was, what else did you learn from him? What can you tell our audience that he taught you? Because he's such a legend, and there are so many stories, and I think it would be great for you to share a story, something that he taught you that you can share with our audience.
First of all, he treated everybody there with incredible respect. You might not have been Jack Nicklaus, Gary Player, or Lee Trevino, but he kind of made you feel like you were that important. I think he realized that network was going to go and become something because of the people there. And he created a family atmosphere. He and Joe Gibbs, not the football coach racing guy, the Joe Gibbs, in my opinion, who belongs in the Golf Hall of Fame. Arnold Palmer had a parking spot there. You didn't dare park in it. And he would roam the halls and he would actually have conversations with people. And that was important. And when you covered Bay Hill on the PGA Tour, you got to spend time with him. I am not going to suggest for a minute that I had a better relationship with him than anybody else there. There were people that have far better relationship with Mr. Palmer. But if you looked over my shoulder in my office and you see the picture of him on the bridge at St. Andrews, autograph that I received for my 40th, and I have some other things throughout my place that I live that have Arnold Palmer in it, you'll see the impact. The story I tell is in 1998, I believe it was, a couple years after the Olympics in Atlanta, Arnold Palmer was asked to design a golf course on the equestrian site outside Atlanta, Conyers, Georgia. And so they asked me, Golf Channel said, hey, you're going to fly with Mr. Palmer up there and we'll send the cameraman with you. And you're going to chronicle the day, and we're going to do a feature on it for Golf Central. I was like, whoa, what an opportunity. So myself and his name's Al Pollack, we went to the hangar that day in Orlando Airport. And I'm telling you, that hangar, pristine, right? The floor's like marble with the iconic logo. And you get in there, and you're just in awe. And hop on the plane. His wife, Winnie, is in the back. All three of my kids born at Arnold Palmer Winnie Hospital. You know, that's a special thing. So we fly up there, and long story short, he plays the round of golf and we chronicle it. And then he heads back to his plane. Now he had a pilot with him, a co-pilot. Arnie flies his own plane, but he had a pilot there, I guess, in case he made a mistake. And so we come back, we get back on the plane, we fly back to Orlando, and it's like he's in a huge hurry. And I'm trying to figure out what's going on. Like, you have nowhere to be. It's your own plane. You can do whatever you want. We get there, we pull into the hangar, and I said, Mr. Palmer, thank you. And I'm getting off the plane. Thank you for a wonderful day. He said, where are you going? I said, I'm going home, sir. We got to work on this feature for tomorrow. He goes, no. Hold on a minute. He goes to the back of his plane and he wheels out this Coleman cooler filled with ice and beverages. I'll leave it at that. And he pulls out 4 director's chairs, sits them down for myself, for my cameraman, and for his co-pilot and himself. And he says, we're going to have a beer. I call home and I said, I'm going to be a little bit late. Why? I said, well, Arnold Palmer just said we're having a beer. And if the king says we're having a beer, we're having a beer. So we sat around, told stories. My point is, that day, he showed me who he truly was. He made you feel like the most important person in the room. He talked about how to care for a network and make it golf's channel, not the golf channel. I've never forgotten that because he didn't have to. And I got to. That's what I tell people.
Well, that's fantastic. As we wrap up here, Kraig, you have Kann Advisor Group has some new announcements coming as that business continues to grow, and which I am in just incredible admiration of what you've built there. And you've relaunched the podcast. What's coming up in both of those areas of your life?
Well, I kicked off this season of my podcast with the president, Danny Ewaldson of Johnson and Murphy. That's a selfish, shameless plug because every store and every airport has so much of my money.
Yeah, right. Love their
Mine
shoes.
too.
That would be fascinating.
Yeah.
I thought that would be fascinating. I've had some amazing guests already this season and we'll continue to do that. Wherever you get your podcast, just like you, and you can watch it. We shoot it as a video on my YouTube channel. The announcement that I'm really proud of is I have advisors on the Kann Advisor team, and I'm growing that. But I've created something, it's taken 1.5 years in the works, and adding 3 ambassador advisors, people in the sports world that are all champions, that have all reached the highest level of success in their given discipline, if you will, who can add to my Elevate workshop that I do for companies and organizations. And so this is going to be called Elevate Plus. The 3 people are Dan Mullen, college football coach, ESPN analyst, who got Mississippi State to #1 in the country in 2014. He was the SEC and National Coach of the Year. Stacy Lewis, 2-time major champion on the LPGA. She's also an Olympian. She was the 2-time Solheim Cup captain, recent winning Solheim Cup captain. That's really cool. Twice #1 in the world. And the third one is Chris Pronger. That's right up your alley, Josh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
FI Hall of Fame, right? One of the top 100 of all time, Stanley Cup winner, 2-time gold medalist, P. All of them do leadership talking. And now they're going to be a part of my Elevate workshop and give a day offering for corporations, organizations to be able to have me come in, do that. I'll be the host, if you will, of the day and have them take part, talking with leaders and being able to break down, how do you get to #1? How do you have a championship culture? All of those types of things. So I'm super excited about that and where the whole thing is headed. It's a lot of work, as you know. It's not a 9 to 5, it's 5 to 9, but the boss is kind of a jerk and he's really a driver, but I have truly enjoyed putting that stuff out there and giving back.
Well, that's true. Kraig, it's been so much fun to see your personal and professional evolution over the past 10, 12, 15 years since we've really gotten to know each other, and especially in the most recent ones and coming back from the pandemic to just really hit the accelerator on Tracks to Success and the Kann Advisory Group. And so just thrilled to have had you on. Finally, was overdue from our end. So I'm glad you joined us.
Yeah, thanks, Kraig. And we got to tee it up soon too, man. I got to get down to Orlando and tee it up with you at some point.
Now's a good time. I've got a really bad wing and getting the ball in the fairway is pretty tough for me. Once I'm there.
God, he's already lobbying for strokes.
I know, right?
Look at
He does
that.
that.
He's shameless. He's like, we haven't even gotten to the first tee.
Yeah.
4 to 5
Negotiating already.
Let us get it on the calendar first, Kraig, okay? Then you can negotiate.
Congratulations to both of you. Your podcast is awesome. I listened to it.
Thanks, brother.
I'm thrilled to take part.
All right, brother. See you soon.
Kraig.
Thanks.
See you.
Dennis, my first takeaway is I thought the 3 bridges were named because my company is Sugar Bridge. Purposefully, I thought, so that's...
Pretty sure ours was named first.
Well, okay, fine. It was, by the way, audience. But, I really have watched Kraig go through a lot of things. Some volatility in his business, a lot of personal transformation over the time, much like you and I have. And so it's really fun to have him kicking off this season that leads towards our first anniversary and highlight somebody who has been through it and found success personally. He's in a fantastic relationship as we record this, and professionally, and hold that up there to our audience to say, people that you look up to, it hasn't always been linear. There are ups and downs. And here we are getting him at a point when he can talk from having climbed a significant portion of the mountain.
Yeah, and I think, boy, you and I can both really empathize and sympathize with everything he's been through. There are a lot of parallels, but I just love the way he was able to pivot and reinvent himself without completely having to change everything that he did. He took pieces of each career and molded them into this successful career. And I think there's a lesson for that in everyone. I think a lot of what I'm finding as we enter season 5 is that we talk a lot about this show being for people on the back nine. I'm becoming more and more inclined to thinking more people on the front nine have to listen to this, because a lot of the things we talk about are things that we learned on the front nine that could really, really help millennials out there and people. So I just don't think we should be pigeonholed into this 50 plus, 45 plus community. When I think about a show like this, I think about Kraig Kann talking to my kids and saying, you know what, you let your instincts guide you. If you think it's going to go in a certain direction, it might, and be prepared to pivot. Don't be pigeonholed into one space and locked into one thing and not be able to change it or adapt or redefine yourself. I think that's an important lesson, not for people on the back nine necessarily, but for people on the front.
That's really good. It's a great appeal to broaden the audience. So thank you. But on a more serious note, it is something. So guys out there, women out there who have grown kids as you do, as Kraig does. His oldest daughter just got married, by the way, as I do. To reach out to your kids and start planting the seeds for this thing. For the people who are on the back nine, who are going through that pivot, especially the professional pivot. And Kraig is a great example of this. But when I was first leaving sportscasting in late 2009, and as I was going through it before I left in 2010, my neighbor, who's a very successful guy, said to me, when I had landed what was going to be the next thing, he said, you're really lucky. You've been in this one career that's pretty niche, being a sportscaster, and to be able to find something that seems on the surface to be very different there's some luck involved. And yeah, there was, for sure. I took that as a compliment, by the way. But what I tell people who are going through it is, all of your experiences lead to the next thing. Kraig showed us that, right? It might be something that is a little bit obvious, like going from the Golf Channel to going to work at an executive level for a golf tour. For me, it was a lot different than that. It wasn't nearly as obvious. But what I tell people is, if you look at your career as ingredients in a recipe, right, you can take sugar and butter and flour and eggs and make pancakes. You can take those same 4 ingredients, mix it up in a different concentration, and you can make cookies. So you can go from being a pancake to being a cookie, or whatever that transition is. And so when you're feeling that ennui of needing a professional shift, maybe it's because it's something you're choosing to do. Maybe it's because it's forced upon you. You can look at not just what you do, but the elements that make up what you do to build the next level and the next step in your career. You've done it. I've done it. Kraig has done it.
Absolutely. And then just a couple other things. I think the lesson from Arnold Palmer is so significant to me, that you just treat everybody the same. You really, whether, what he said, whether it was Jack Nicklaus or Gary Player in the room or him or somebody who worked there, he treated everybody like they were equals. And somebody at his stature, and I've heard this about Arnie before, and I know Winnie was like this because I got to meet Winnie Palmer once, that they never talked down to you. They never thought they were above you. And in this day and age, that's so rare. So many of these elite people that make this level, that somebody like Arnold Palmer, they don't keep that humility. They don't have it. And then the fact that he kept it and passed that lesson on to somebody like Kraig, and I'm sure countless others, is significant.
Yep. And Kraig pays it forward, because that's something that he implements when he is both in his podcasts, which I, again, encourage our audience to listen to. It's called Tracks to Success. And when he's doing his workshops. And so a good friend and a guy I'm proud to call a friend, and a guy that I'm thrilled joined us here on our podcast, The Back Nine. We've got a great season ahead. And this was a terrific way, from my point of view, to be able to start us into season 5. We hope you'll join us for the rest of it here on The Back Nine.
Hi, I'm Kevin Zurich with Three Bridges Consulting. If your company is considering podcast advertising, consider Three Bridges your go-to partner. We specialize in connecting your brand with the perfect podcast and podcast hosts to reach a highly targeted audience. Podcasts really provide a unique opportunity to speak directly to your core consumer in a very engaging and intimate format. If you know who your audience is, we will find them and ensure your story resonates. So give us a call today to discover how podcast advertising can enhance your overall media strategy. Our number, 760-590-7634. Again, 760-590-7634. 7634. We look forward to hearing from you.
The Back Nine is attested to by Janine Stella and recorded at Pixelworks Studios in Delray Beach, Florida.